Hi, and welcome back to English Without Limit. I'm Julia, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the community. This is a space where we grow together, support each other, and learn to speak English with more freedom and confidence. And if you've been listening for a while, thank you for coming back. I truly appreciate you. Whether you're out for a walk, doing chores, studying, or just relaxing with your headphones on, I want you to feel like this is your moment. A moment to connect, not just with me, but with your own growth. Now, let's be honest for a second. Have you ever spoken English and felt like you were reading from a script? Like every word had to be perfect? Like you were acting out a role rather than just being yourself? Maybe your words came out slow. Maybe they felt stiff or overly formal. Maybe you practiced a sentence 100 times in your head, but when it came out, your voice didn't sound like you. It sounded robotic. If that sounds familiar, I want you to know, you are not alone. I've worked with learners from all over the world, from Berlin to Cairo, Seoul to Jakarta, Madrid to Mumbai. And this feeling, it's incredibly common. So many learners can read and write in English with ease. They understand so much. But when it's time to speak, it doesn't feel right. It's like something blocks the natural flow. They try so hard to be correct, with grammar, with word choice, with pronunciation, that they lose the most important part of all, their own voice. Here's what I want to tell you today. Speaking English naturally is not about being perfect. It's about being real. It's about speaking with confidence, with emotion, with ease, even if that means making a few mistakes along the way. Because that's what real people do. And guess what? You are not a robot, and your English doesn't have to sound like one either. So, in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to sound more like you in English. We'll look at why so many learners get stuck in that robotic mode, and I'll share some really practical, easy-to-apply tips to help you feel more confident and natural when you speak. But first, let's take a breath together. Right now. Inhale and exhale. Let's drop the pressure. Let's leave perfection behind for a moment. This podcast is your safe space. No grades, no judgment, no tests, just you and me learning and growing together. And you know what? You're already doing something amazing just by being here. Learning to speak naturally isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more of who you already are, in another language. Before we dive deeper, I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, even if it's just in your own mind. When you speak English, how do you feel? Not how others say you sound, how you feel inside. Do you feel relaxed, comfortable, or do you feel nervous, tense? Maybe even a little afraid of making a mistake? Do you feel like you can express your real thoughts, your emotions? Or do you feel like you're trapped inside rules and memorized phrases? Your answer matters. Your experience matters. And the good news is, it can change. You don't have to sound robotic. You don't have to feel stuck. And you definitely don't have to do this alone. This podcast, English Without Limit, is here to remind you that you're part of something bigger. There's a whole community of learners who feel just like you, nervous, uncertain, but still trying, still showing up, still speaking, and slowly, with time and practice, they begin to sound not just correct, but natural. So let's make a deal. Today, we're not chasing perfect. We're chasing real. We're not here to impress. We're here to connect. We're here to learn how to speak English in a way that reflects you, your personality, your feelings, your unique voice. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but Julia, I've studied English for years. I've memorized grammar rules. I know tons of words, and I still don't sound natural. And to that, I say, I hear you. The truth is, most traditional English lessons don't teach you how to sound natural. They teach you how to be correct. They teach rules, they teach tests. But real conversations, they're not tests. They're messy. They're full of emotion. They're full of pauses, mistakes, and even laughter. Think about how you speak your native language. Do you always use perfect grammar? Probably not. You pause. You repeat yourself. You use your voice to show emotion. And that's the kind of English we're going to explore today. The kind that helps you connect, not just communicate. So if this topic speaks to you, if you've ever felt like a robot when you're trying to speak, stay with me. This episode is for you. And if you find value in today's conversation, it would mean so much if you could follow this podcast or leave a rating or review. It helps our community grow, and it helps other learners find this safe, encouraging space. You never know, your small action might be the reason someone finds their way here. And maybe, just maybe, it's exactly what they needed. So, are you ready? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about why so many of us sound robotic when we speak English, and what's really going on behind those stiff, slow, unnatural sentences. You might think it's a vocabulary issue, or that you just need more speaking practice. But honestly, it's usually not that. More often, this robotic sound comes from how we were taught English in the first place. Let me share something I've heard from learners all over, from Istanbul to Bangkok, from Rome to Johannesburg. I'm afraid of making mistakes. I don't want to sound stupid. I keep thinking about grammar while I'm speaking. If any of that sounds familiar to you, I want you to know. It doesn't mean you're bad at English. It means your brain is doing what it was trained to do. Protect you. In most schools, we learn language in a very controlled way. We memorize vocabulary lists. We repeat perfect sentences. We get graded on grammar. And when it's time to have a real conversation, our brain switches into test mode. We scan for rules. We rehearse each sentence in our head. And in that moment, we stop communicating and start performing. And that's exactly why your English might sound robotic. You're not relaxed. You're not focused on expressing ideas. You're focused on getting it right. But communication is not a performance. It's a connection. And real connection is messy. It's human. It's full of emotions. Let me tell you a quick story. There's a learner named Emma. She grew up in Warsaw and has studied English since she was 10. Her grammar is excellent. Her writing is polished. But every time she speaks, she sounds stiff and overly formal. She's afraid to make mistakes, so she double-checks every word before she says it. Then one day, she joins a local conversation group and meets Leo from Buenos Aires. Leo's English isn't perfect. He makes grammar mistakes. He uses basic vocabulary, but when he speaks, his voice is alive. He gestures, he smiles. People laugh when he tells stories. They lean in when he speaks. Emma is surprised. Leo makes more mistakes. But he sounds natural. That was the moment Emma realized something important. People don't connect with grammar. They connect with energy, rhythm, emotion. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about being present in the conversation. And that's a lesson I want you to take with you today. If you've ever sounded robotic while speaking English, It's not because there's something wrong with you. It's because your focus has been in the wrong place. You were taught to treat speaking like a test, not like a real human connection, and that mindset is what we need to shift. Now, the good news is, you can absolutely change this. You can retrain your brain to speak more naturally, and it doesn't require huge changes or complex strategies. It starts with small daily habits, things you can do in just a few minutes a day to break out of the robot mode and bring life back into your English. For example, one of the simplest things you can do is to stop trying to translate from your native language while you speak. I know this is difficult, especially in the beginning, but the more you try to build sentences in English directly, the more natural your speech will become. Think of it like learning to dance. If you're constantly counting steps in your head, you won't be able to move freely. But once you start feeling the rhythm, your body learns to follow it naturally. Another practice that helps is shadowing. You listen to a native speaker and repeat what they say in real time, trying to match their rhythm, tone, and emotion. You don't need to understand every single word. The goal is to train your mouth and brain to move in sync, just like music, practicing with a song. Over time, this builds confidence and breaks the habit of overthinking every sentence. It also helps to record yourself speaking. I know that sounds uncomfortable, but it's one of the best ways to hear how you sound and make small adjustments. You might notice that your tone is too flat or your pacing is too slow. Once you hear it, you can start to experiment. Add emotion, vary your speed, use pauses to sound more expressive. And let's not forget the role of mindset. If you constantly tell yourself, "I'm not good at speaking," or "I sound stupid," your brain will treat speaking English like a dangerous activity. But if you change your internal voice to something more supportive, like "I'm learning," or "It's okay to sound different," you'll give yourself permission to improve without pressure. I once worked with a learner named Nico from Athens. He told me he never felt natural speaking English, even though he studied for years. We started with tiny changes. He began using short, simple phrases when speaking instead of long, complex ones. He practiced reading aloud for 5 minutes a day. And most importantly, he allowed himself to laugh when he made a mistake, instead of feeling embarrassed. In 3 months, his voice changed completely. Not because he learned more grammar, but because he let go of the fear and started trusting himself. That's what I want for you too. It's not about speaking fast or using fancy words. It's about sounding real. You don't have to sound like a native speaker. You don't need to imitate someone else's accent. You just need to sound like you in English. And that voice, your voice, is enough. So the next time you catch yourself sounding robotic, pause and breathe. Remind yourself, I'm not here to perform. I'm here to communicate. I'm here to connect. And I'm doing my best. That shift in mindset alone can transform the way you speak. Let me tell you a story about a woman named Sofia. She's from Warsaw, Poland. For years, Sofia had been studying English. She was the kind of student who always did her homework, read English novels, and even watched English TV shows without subtitles. She wasn't just good at English. She was excellent. Her grammar was precise. Her vocabulary was rich, and her pronunciation was clear. On paper, she was ready for anything. But when she landed her very first job interview in English, something unexpected happened. Sophia had applied for a position at a company based in Dublin. It was a role in international customer support, and the team worked with clients across Europe. The interview was online, and everything about it made her nervous. She had prepared carefully. She wrote out answers to common questions, practiced in front of the mirror, and even rehearsed her responses with a friend. She memorized full sentences, so she wouldn't make any grammar mistakes. The moment the video call began, she sat up straight, smiled, and began speaking. Technically, everything she said was correct. She answered all the questions clearly. Her grammar was spotless. She sounded polite, respectful, and serious. But the people on the other side of the screen looked distant. Their faces didn't light up. There were no warm smiles, no follow-up questions. When the call ended, Sophia didn't feel good. She had said everything she planned to say, but it felt like there was no real connection. 2 days later, she received a kind rejection email. The company said they appreciated her effort and professionalism, but they had chosen someone else for the role. Sophia was heartbroken. She didn't understand what went wrong. She had followed every rule. She hadn't made any mistakes. Why hadn't it worked? So she did something brave. She asked for feedback. She wrote a polite message to the interviewer and asked if there was anything she could improve for future interviews. And to her surprise, the interviewer responded with honesty and care. They said, "Your English is excellent, Sofia. But it felt like you were reading from a script. We wanted to see a bit more of you. Your personality, your reactions, your natural way of speaking." The conversation felt a little too rehearsed. That feedback hit hard, but it also opened her eyes. Sophia realized she had spent so much time trying to sound perfect that she had forgotten to sound human. She thought using complex sentences and formal phrases would make her sound more professional. But in reality, it made her sound distant and robotic. What the company really wanted was someone they could talk to, someone who could express ideas with confidence and flexibility, not someone who sounded like they were repeating a textbook. So she made a decision. She was going to change the way she approached speaking English. Sophia stopped memorizing full answers. Instead, she started practicing ideas, not sentences. She gave herself permission to speak more freely, even if that meant using simpler words or making small mistakes. She recorded herself answering typical interview questions, but tried to answer them the way she would if she were speaking to a friend. She focused on using phrases that came naturally to her, like, "That's a good question," or "What I've learned from that experience is..." She worked on sounding engaged, open, and real. 1 week later, she got another interview. This time, it was with a tech startup based in Berlin that needed someone to help with English-speaking clients. Again, the interview was online, but this time, Sophia didn't bring any notes. She didn't try to be perfect. She just focused on being herself, using English to connect rather than to impress. And the difference was immediate. The interviewers smiled, laughed, and asked follow-up questions. When Sophia described her previous job, she shared a small story about a difficult customer and how she solved the problem. When she didn't know a specific word, she found another way to explain her idea, without panicking. Her voice sounded more relaxed, her answers had rhythm, and her energy filled the conversation. By the end of the interview, one of the managers said, "You have a very natural way of speaking. It's easy to talk with you." And 2 days later, she got the job. Sophia's story is something I think many of us can learn from. She was already fluent in English, but fluency isn't just about vocabulary or grammar. It's also about flow, about being present, about using the language to express who you are. What helped Sophia wasn't more studying. It was letting go of the need to sound perfect. It was shifting her focus from correctness to connection. And this is something I want you to remember too. People don't remember perfect sentences. They remember you, your energy, your tone, your willingness to speak honestly and with confidence. Sophia told me later that she still uses simple phrases in her new job, but now she uses them proudly. She no longer hides behind rehearsed lines. She says things like, "I'm not sure, but I can find out," or "Let me explain it another way." And her team appreciates her clarity and confidence. You don't need to use advanced words to make an impact. You just need to be real. That's what sounding natural is all about. If you've ever felt pressured to memorize full answers or use fancy English to sound more professional, I hope Sophia's story helps you rethink that approach. The goal is not to impress with complexity. It's to communicate with confidence. And often, the simplest way to do that is to sound like yourself. So let's practice this right now. Try this with me. Say out loud, "I'm learning every day, and it's okay to make mistakes." Notice how it feels. It's simple. It's honest. It's human. That's the kind of English I want you to use. English that connects, English that expresses, English that sounds like you. Let's say you want to describe a past experience. You could say, "During my time at the previous institution, I acquired a multitude of valuable skills." Or you could say, "I learned a lot in my last job." Which one do you think people will respond to better? The second one, not because it's smarter, but because it's human. You're having a conversation, not writing an academic essay. It's the same with questions. Many learners say, "Could you kindly inform me about the status of the project?" But fluent speakers usually say, "Any updates on the project?" Or, "How's the project going? Still professional, still respectful, but faster, smoother, and more natural." You don't need to fill your sentences with long words to sound smart. You sound smart when you speak with confidence and clarity. Think about famous speakers, leaders, or interviewers. Most of them use very basic vocabulary, but they use it with purpose. They're not trying to impress, they're trying to connect, and connection is the heart of language. Let me share something personal. When I started teaching English years ago, I used to think I had to impress my students with academic explanations and complex vocabulary. But over time, I learned that the more I simplified things, the more students understood. The more I used natural expressions, the more they remembered them. Learning became easier, more fun, and honestly, more effective. If you ever feel like your English is too simple, stop and ask yourself, am I being clear? Am I being real? Because that's what really matters. It's not about sounding like a textbook. It's about sounding like you. But in English, you can start practicing this right now. The next time you want to say something in English, try saying it in the simplest way possible. Not lazy, not careless, just honest and clear. If you're writing, review your message and see if you can cut out a word or two. If you're speaking, give yourself permission to pause and choose words that feel natural to you. This is how fluency really begins, not with perfect grammar or rare words, but with real communication. Let go of the pressure to be impressive. Be expressive instead. Because here's the truth. The more naturally you speak, the more people will want to listen. And that's the real goal, isn't it? Not to sound perfect, but to be understood, to connect, and to grow. One simple sentence at a time. Now, let's talk about the pause. Yes, the pause itself. Many English learners think they have to speak quickly to sound fluent. They worry that if they slow down or stop to think, they'll seem unsure or less advanced. But actually, pausing when you speak makes you sound more confident, not less. It makes you sound thoughtful, real, and human. And that's exactly what we want. When native speakers talk, they pause all the time. They pause when they're thinking, when they want to emphasize something, or simply to breathe. These pauses aren't mistakes. They're part of the rhythm of natural speech. And when you learn to use them, your English becomes more alive, more relaxed, and more believable. I get it. Many learners are afraid of silence. Maybe you felt this pressure too. When your mind goes blank for a second, you panic. You try to fill every moment with words, even if those words don't help. You rush. You talk fast. You stop breathing. You sound like you're reading from a script. And your message gets lost. Now imagine the opposite. You take a breath. You let your words land. You give your listener time to follow your ideas. You speak slower, with intention. That's when your English becomes not just correct, but real. Let me tell you about Anil, a software developer from Mumbai. He once told me, "When I speak English, I feel like I'm running. I know what I want to say, but I speak too fast and then I forget what comes next." So, we worked on pausing. He practiced saying one sentence at a time, then breathing. Instead of rushing, he gave space to his ideas. He started using silence as his advantage. A few weeks later, he gave a short presentation at work. And do you know what his manager said? "You sounded more confident today." That was all the feedback he needed. And Neil didn't learn new words or memorize long phrases. He just started pausing. Let's try this together. Say out loud, "I think." We should try another way. Did you hear that pause after "I think"? It gives your listener a moment to pay attention and gives you time to think. Try this one too. The project, it was a challenge, but we did it. That pause creates space, and in that space, your voice sounds more human. Pauses also help you sound less rehearsed. Sometimes learners memorize entire answers before presentations or interviews. And that's okay at first. But when every word comes out without a pause, it feels robotic. Real people don't talk like that. They think as they speak. They adjust. They reflect. And that's what makes them sound authentic. Another student I worked with was Laia from Paris. She had an elegant way of speaking, but it sounded scripted. One day she said to me, "People say I sound like an audiobook." We laughed. Then I asked her to try something new. Stop memorizing. Slow down. Imagine you're talking to a close friend, not an audience. At first, it was uncomfortable. She hated the silence between her sentences. But slowly, she began to enjoy the freedom of choosing her words in the moment. The pauses helped her relax. Her tone changed. She started to sound like herself, not like a recording. And here's something important. Pausing doesn't just help you. It helps your listener too. When you pause, your listener has time to understand you. They don't feel like they're chasing your words. They feel like you're having a real conversation, not giving a speech. Think about great speakers, people who inspire us. They don't rush. They speak slowly, with purpose. They allow silence between sentences. And because of that, we listen. We remember what they say. The power isn't in how much they say. It's in how they say it. So, if you're someone who rushes when speaking English, I want to give you permission right now. You can slow down. You can stop for a second. You can take a breath. You don't have to fill every space with words. A short pause is not a failure. It's not a weakness. It's not something you need to fix. It's one of the best tools you have. Here's a small exercise for today. Record yourself talking about something simple, maybe your morning routine or your favorite food. Try to speak slowly, and after every sentence, pause for a second, then listen back. Do you notice how clear your voice sounds? How each idea stands on its own? Now, record the same message without pausing. Rush through it. Listen again. Which sounds more confident? More natural? I think you'll know the answer. You don't need to speak fast to be fluent. The most fluent speakers are those who control the rhythm of their speech. They speak clearly, calmly. They trust their words matter, so they pause. Don't be afraid of silence. Embrace it. Use it. Let it be part of your English, because sounding natural isn't just about what you say, it's about how you say it. When you learn to pause, you start sounding more like yourself, thoughtful, real, and fully present. Let me share one last story about Ravi, a data analyst from Mumbai. A few months ago, he was invited to speak at an international conference in London. His first time presenting in front of an English-speaking audience, he was excited but nervous. He said to me, "Julia, I want to do well. I want to sound professional and smart. I don't want to make any mistakes." He wrote and memorized every line of his speech, practiced for hours, rehearsed in front of the mirror, recorded himself to fix pronunciation. But on the day of the conference, even though his voice was steady and clear, something was missing. The audience listened politely but didn't seem engaged. No nods, no laughter, no connection. Afterwards, he said, "I think I did everything right, but it didn't feel right." That's when we talked about the difference between perfect English and natural English. Ravi was speaking to the audience but not with them. His speech had structure but no soul. It sounded like a script, not like him. So next time, Ravi changed his approach. He didn't memorize his lines. Instead, he wrote key points, short, simple notes. He practiced speaking from those notes like telling a story to a friend. At first, he worried. What if I forget something? I reminded him. When you speak naturally, you're not trying to remember lines. You're communicating ideas. At his next talk, he had notes in hand, just bullet points, and he spoke, not read. And something beautiful happened. The audience leaned in. They laughed. They asked questions. They nodded. He wasn't perfect, but he was honest, clear, and relaxed. His pauses were natural. His voice had emotion, and his message reached people. After that, many said, "I really liked how you explained that," or "You made it easy to understand." Ravi realized connection is more important than perfection. It's about showing up as yourself. He told me, "I felt like they were actually listening this time." That simple shift from memorizing to trusting himself changed everything. So remember this. You don't need to sound perfect. You need to sound real. Real people make pauses. Real people forget words and find others. Real people speak with feeling, not a perfect script. That's what makes you believable. If you've ever felt pressure to memorize everything for a presentation or phone call, know you're not alone. But letting go of control can actually make you more powerful. It's okay to use notes. It's okay to plan. But leave room for your voice. Leave space for the moment. Speak to be understood, not to be exact. When you do, your English becomes a tool for connection, not just a display of grammar skills. The next time you have to speak in English, try this method inspired by Ravi's story. Instead of writing full sentences, write keywords. Focus on your message, not just vocabulary. Practice explaining your points in different ways. Let your ideas lead and let your words follow. This simple shift, from memorizing to expressing, can change everything. If Ravi, who once couldn't imagine speaking without a script, could do it in front of an international audience, you can too. Let me tell you a story. I once worked with a student from Vienna named Lucas. He had excellent grammar and a strong vocabulary, but he felt people often didn't understand him, especially when he was tired or speaking quickly. When I listened, I noticed his rhythm was very flat. Every word had equal weight. He spoke like a machine. So we worked on two things: phrase rhythm and word stress. I gave him short scripts to practice, where he would mark the stressed words. We practiced clapping to the beat of a sentence and even used music. He tapped along with English songs to feel the natural timing of phrases. After a few weeks, his speech became more expressive and alive. He told me, "Julia, I feel like now I'm saying things, not just speaking them." That was such a powerful moment because he finally connected with how the language works. You don't need a musical background to master English rhythm. You just need to pay attention to how English sounds when spoken naturally. Start with short phrases. Use your hands to tap the stressed words. Say the same sentence slowly, then a little faster. Break long sentences into natural chunks. And most importantly, practice with your ears first. Listening is the foundation of good speaking. Many learners worry they'll never sound like a native speaker, but that's not the goal. The goal is to sound like yourself. Speaking English in a way that feels natural and confident. Using intonation and rhythm doesn't mean changing who you are. It means bringing more life to your message, more meaning to your words. Here's a little secret. Native speakers aren't listening for perfect grammar. They listen for energy, connection, and clarity. If your voice rises at the end of a question, they understand it's a question, even if you make a small mistake. If you stress the right word, they catch your meaning, even if your pronunciation isn't perfect. Rhythm and intonation help your listener follow you, even when everything else isn't perfect. So give yourself permission to sound more musical. Play with your voice. Let it rise and fall. Let your words dance a little. It may feel awkward at first, but with practice, it becomes part of how you speak. The result? You'll sound more natural, confident, and connected in every conversation. One of the most practical techniques to improve your spoken English and sound more natural is a combination of 3 simple actions: listen, repeat, shadow. These might sound basic, but when done consistently and correctly, they can transform your speaking skills. Here's why this method works so well. When we learn a language, especially in classrooms, we often focus on reading and writing. But speaking is physical. It involves your mouth, ears, breath, and memory. To sound natural, you have to train your speaking muscles just like any other muscle. That's what listening, repeating, and shadowing help you do. First, listen. But don't just listen passively. Listen actively. Pay attention not only to the meaning, but to how native speakers say things. Notice rhythm, pauses, melody, and stress. Are they speaking quickly or slowly? Do they raise their voice at the end? Are they using contractions? Next, repeat. After hearing a sentence or phrase, say it out loud, not just in your head. Try to copy the tone, rhythm, and energy. Don't worry about being perfect. The goal is to build the connection between your ear and your mouth. Then, shadow. Shadowing means speaking along with the speaker, just a second behind. You don't wait for the sentence to finish. It's like being their shadow. Actors, interpreters, and top language learners use this to train their mouths to move fluently. You're not thinking about grammar or translation. You're copying speech in real time, training your brain and muscles together. Shadowing can feel hard at first. You might feel behind or struggle to keep up. That's normal. Start with short clips. 5 to 10 seconds is perfect. Use your favorite series, movie dialogues, podcasts, or TED Talks. Pick one voice. Listen, then repeat slowly, then shadow. Here's an example for daily life. Imagine you're making coffee in the morning. You have 5 minutes. Instead of scrolling your phone, play a short conversation clip. Listen, repeat, shadow. You've just done a powerful speaking exercise before your day begins. Or on your commute, you don't have to speak out loud on a crowded train, but you can listen actively, whisper, or mouth the sentences. Then, when you get home, repeat them aloud. The key is to connect listening and speaking as often as possible. A learner I worked with, Yuki from Tokyo, used this method during lunch breaks. She had just 10 minutes, so she picked short YouTube interviews with English subtitles. First, she listened and read the subtitles. Then she muted the video and repeated the sentences. Finally, she played it again and shadowed the speaker. After a few weeks, her confidence grew. Even her coworkers noticed she spoke more fluently in meetings. Another student, Leandro from Buenos Aires, loved movies. He chose scenes he already knew. He paused after each sentence to repeat it, then played the full scene to shadow the actor. It became a fun habit, not a boring task. This is what makes the method so powerful. It fits your life naturally. Here's a simple way to practice. Choose a short clip, 10 to 30 seconds. Listen once without repeating. Listen again and repeat out loud. Play again and shadow 1 second behind. Repeat 2 or 3 times. It doesn't have to be perfect. The goal is to train your brain to hear English naturally and connect that sound to your own speech. Over time, your pronunciation improves, rhythm gets smoother, and you stop translating in your head. The exciting part? Shadowing helps you think in English. Because you're not translating, your brain absorbs chunks of language like, "I'm not sure." "That sounds good." "What do you mean?" And you say them naturally. Some learners worry about sounding silly when shadowing, especially alone. But remember, this is your private practice. The more you do it, the more natural it feels. When you speak in real conversations, these phrases come out easily, without effort. Try this method today. Don't wait for the perfect time or the perfect video. Choose something simple. Maybe a short clip from this podcast. Listen to a sentence. Repeat it. Shadow it. Just 5 minutes will make a difference. You'll feel your mouth getting used to English's flow. Your voice will sound more confident. And your English will stop sounding like a script and start sounding like real conversation. It's not about speed or perfection. It's about consistency, curiosity, and being committed to sounding like yourself. Comfortable and clear. Let me tell you about Amina from Casablanca. She works in customer service at a tech company doing business with the UK and Canada. She told me she felt nervous speaking English in calls or emails. "I understand everything," she said, "but when it's my turn, I freeze. I sound like a machine." Her problem wasn't vocabulary or grammar. She knew the words and could form sentences, but lacked confidence. She hesitated, overthought, and tried too hard to sound correct. The more she tried, the more robotic she sounded. What helped her wasn't a course or book. It was her favorite British drama series. At first, it was just entertainment. But one day, she paused during a conversation and realized, this is how people actually speak. This is how I want to sound. That realization changed everything. She turned her favorite show into her personal English coach. Every evening, she watched a short scene, no more than 5 minutes, and repeated the dialogue out loud, not just reading subtitles, but saying the lines with the same tone, rhythm, and energy as the actors. She wasn't focused on understanding every word or analyzing grammar. Her goal was to feel how the language flowed. Listening, repeating, shadowing, just like we talked about. At first, she felt silly. She'd check if her neighbors could hear her talking to the TV. But slowly, the words became easier, expressions familiar. She began to anticipate the characters' lines. In meetings, the phrases came back naturally. Without fear or effort, her routine was simple but powerful. Watch one scene, replay sentence by sentence, say each line, copy tone and pauses, imitate emotions. It felt like acting, but really it was language practice in disguise. And it worked. After a few weeks, coworkers noticed her voice sounded more confident and relaxed. During a call with a Toronto client, she smoothly answered a tricky question with a phrase from her practice. She smiled and said, "It felt like I wasn't trying anymore. I was just speaking." That's the key. She stopped trying to speak perfectly and started living the language through the characters she loved. That shift from accuracy to connection unlocked her fluency. What I love about Amina's story is how she made learning fit her life. No big program, no textbooks, just her favorite show, 5 to 15 minutes a day, and intention. If you're thinking, "I don't have time," remember Amina. She had a full-time job, family, and commute, but made space for 5 minutes. Those minutes, done consistently, changed her English. Maybe you have a show you love, comedy, crime, documentary. Use it. Watch with English subtitles. Repeat lines out loud. Don't memorize. Play with language. Say words with emotion and rhythm. Pretend you're the actor. It might feel awkward, but over time, you'll improve and start to enjoy it. Some people feel self-conscious practicing aloud. That's normal. You're not used to your own voice in English, but that's why this practice is powerful. It trains your mouth, ear, and brain together. You're not just learning English. You're becoming someone who uses it naturally. Amina didn't change overnight. It took patience, but her practice became something she looked forward to. It gave her more than pronunciation. It gave her self-trust. Now, her voice carries confidence, calm, and connection. That's what I want for all of you. Whether through a TV show, movie scene, or even a podcast like this one, make your practice enjoyable. You don't need to force it. Show up every day in small ways. Think about what you love to watch. Use it. Speak out loud. Enjoy the rhythm. be the character. It's not about perfection. It's about being present, real, and letting your English grow through joy. Before we finish, let's talk about memorizing long sentences. It sounds helpful, right? But memorizing long sentences can actually make you sound less confident and more robotic. Why? Because your brain focuses on remembering every word exactly instead of what you want to say. If a conversation changes or you want to say something different, you might freeze or get stuck. It's like having a script but no ability to improvise. Real communication isn't about repeating perfect sentences word for word. It's about expressing your ideas clearly and flexibly. Instead of memorizing whole sentences, I encourage you to focus on learning useful patterns and structures. Think of patterns as building blocks. Once you know them, you can create many different sentences just by changing a few words. This gives you freedom. It helps you sound more natural because you're not limited to a fixed script. You can adapt and respond in the moment. For example, instead of memorizing a long sentence like, "I am very excited to attend the meeting tomorrow because I want to learn more about the project," focus on the pattern. "I am very adjective to verb the event because I want to verb more about the topic." Once you know this structure, you can easily change it. "I am very happy to meet the team next week because I want to understand the plan better." Or, "I am really nervous to give a presentation because I want to do well." Learning patterns like this allows you to be creative. You can mix and match adjectives, verbs, and nouns depending on what you want to say. You don't need to worry about getting every word exactly right. You're focusing on meaning and communication. This flexibility is what makes your speech sound natural and spontaneous. Let me give you another example. Instead of memorizing a sentence like, "Could you please send me the report by the end of the day?" you can learn the useful pattern, "Could you please verb me the noun by time?" This lets you quickly create many sentences such as, "Could you please email me the document by tomorrow morning?" Or, "Could you please bring me the files by next week?" When you focus on patterns, you also learn how native speakers organize their ideas. It's like learning the grammar that really matters in everyday speaking, without getting stuck on complicated rules. You develop a toolkit that you can use in different situations instead of just repeating what you heard. Another important benefit is that patterns help you respond more easily during conversations. If someone asks you, "What do you like to do on weekends?" and you've learned the pattern, "I like to verb noun on weekends," you can quickly say, "I like to read books on weekends," or "I like to go hiking on weekends." Without hesitation, this makes your speech flow better and gives you confidence. Sometimes learners try to memorize long dialogues or answers to common questions. I want to tell you, it's more helpful to practice short chunks of language and patterns that you can combine. Think about it like playing with Lego blocks. Each pattern is a block that you can put together to build many different sentences. Here's a simple exercise you can try. Choose a pattern you want to practice, like, "I want to verb noun." Write down 5 verbs and 5 nouns that fit. Then make sentences, for example, "I want to watch a movie." "I want to eat dinner." "I want to learn English." Practice saying these aloud. This helps you get used to the structure and improve your fluency. It's also important to remember, when you speak, People care more about what you mean than whether every word is perfect. Don't be afraid to make small mistakes if your message is clear. Using simple, flexible patterns will help you say what you want, without getting stuck trying to recall exact sentences you memorized. This approach is very freeing because it encourages you to experiment with language. You can try new words, switch adjectives, and change verbs to fit your situation. Over time, you'll build a mental library of useful patterns that feel natural and easy to use. If you're still tempted to memorize long sentences, try to break those sentences down into smaller parts. Identify the key patterns inside them. Focus your practice on those parts rather than the whole thing. This will make your speaking more adaptable and less stressful. I've seen many learners get stuck because they thought memorizing sentences was the only way to speak better. But when they started focusing on patterns, their confidence grew quickly. They could join conversations more easily, express themselves with their own words, and sound more like themselves. Remember, language is about connection, not perfection. When you learn patterns, you're learning the tools to build your own sentences that reflect who you are. You're learning to communicate naturally, like a native speaker would, not like a robot reciting lines. So, if you want to speak English more naturally, start paying attention to patterns around you. When you listen to podcasts, shows, or conversations, try to pick out useful phrases and break them into smaller chunks. Practice these chunks until they feel comfortable. Then combine them in your own way. Speaking naturally means being flexible and confident, and patterns help you get there. This way, you won't feel trapped by memorized sentences. Instead, you'll have the freedom to express yourself clearly, quickly, and in your own voice. Give it a try. You might be surprised how much easier and more enjoyable speaking English becomes when you let go of long sentence memorization and focus on patterns instead. Now, I want to talk about something else I know many learners struggle with: waiting until you feel ready to speak. Maybe you tell yourself, I need to know more vocabulary first. Or, I have to practice perfect grammar before I talk. Or, I'm too nervous, so I'll wait until I'm confident. I understand this feeling because I've been there too. But here's the truth. The best way to improve your speaking is to start speaking. Even if you don't feel ready. Speaking out loud is one of the most powerful tools you have to develop fluency. It might feel awkward or uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to practicing silently in your head or only writing. But when you say words and sentences out loud, you train your mouth, your tongue, your brain, and your ears to work together. This is how you build muscle memory for speaking English naturally. One of the biggest mistakes I see learners make is waiting for the perfect moment. The perfect moment rarely comes, and if you wait too long, you lose precious time to practice. Imagine if you decided to wait until you could speak perfectly without mistakes. That day would never arrive because learning a language is full of mistakes and corrections. The sooner you start speaking, the faster you'll improve. You don't need a conversation partner or a classroom to start practicing speaking out loud. You can do it alone, anywhere, anytime. For example, try describing what you're doing right now. Maybe you're cooking dinner, walking in the park, or sitting at your desk. Speak out loud. I am cooking dinner. I am chopping vegetables. I need to boil water. This simple activity helps you practice vocabulary and sentence structure in a relaxed way. Another great practice is to talk about your thoughts or feelings. For example, I feel happy today because the weather is nice, or I am thinking about my plans for the weekend. This kind of practice lets you connect English with your daily life, making it more natural and meaningful. If you want to get more creative, try narrating your daily routine out loud. For instance, when you get dressed in the morning, say the words as you do things. I put on my shirt, I brush my teeth, I pack my bag. This might feel silly at first, but it's very effective. It's like training your brain and mouth to work together so you can speak without hesitation later in real conversations. One tip I always share is to create a small daily habit of speaking out loud. It can be just 5 minutes every day. 5 minutes might sound short, but consistent practice over time is what really matters. 5 minutes a day adds up to many hours in a month, and that's how you develop confidence and fluency gradually. Also, speaking out loud helps you notice your pronunciation and rhythm. When you hear your own voice, you can identify areas to improve. Maybe you realize some words are difficult to say, or your intonation sounds flat. This awareness is essential because it guides you to practice better and more focused. Sometimes I suggest recording yourself while speaking. Listen back and see how you sound. Don't judge yourself too harshly. Remember, this is a learning process, and your goal is progress, not perfection. You will be surprised how much you improve just by listening to yourself regularly. Let me share a story about a friend named Anna from Berlin. She was shy about speaking English because she was afraid of making mistakes. One day, she decided to start describing her day out loud to herself at home. She would say simple sentences like, I am reading a book, or I am cleaning my room. After a few weeks, she noticed that speaking felt easier, and she became more confident to talk with others. She didn't wait for a conversation partner or a perfect sentence. She just spoke whenever she could. That small change made a big difference. You too can use speaking out loud to prepare for real-life conversations. If you know you will talk with someone about a specific topic, practice some key sentences related to that topic. For example, if you have a meeting or a class, practice saying your ideas or questions out loud beforehand. This will help reduce nervousness and improve your fluency when the time comes. Another helpful practice is to talk to yourself in English while doing simple tasks like walking or waiting in line. Instead of thinking in your native language, try to describe your surroundings or your plans in English. For example, I am walking to the store. I will buy some fruits and vegetables. This trains your mind to switch to English more quickly and naturally. One important thing to remember is that mistakes are part of the process. Don't let the fear of mistakes stop you from speaking. Every mistake is a learning opportunity. When you practice speaking out loud, you learn what works and what needs improvement. This continuous feedback helps you grow as a speaker. Many learners tell me they are afraid to speak because they think they need perfect grammar or pronunciation first. I always say, don't wait for perfection. Speak with what you know now. Use simple words and sentences. Focus on communication, not perfection. Over time, your grammar and pronunciation will improve naturally with practice. If you're worried about sounding silly or nervous, remember this. Everyone starts somewhere. Even native speakers sometimes feel unsure or make mistakes. The key is to keep practicing and not be afraid of imperfection. You can create fun ways to practice speaking out loud. Maybe you describe your favorite movie scene, retell a story you read, or talk about your dreams and goals. The more you enjoy practicing, the easier it becomes to speak naturally. When you make speaking out loud a daily habit, you build a connection with the language. You start to think in English more often, and that helps reduce translation from your native language. This makes your speech smoother and faster. Finally, don't underestimate the power of speaking to yourself. It might feel strange at first, but it is a safe and private way to practice without pressure. Use this time to experiment with new words, expressions, and sentence patterns. Try to speak as if you were talking to a friend. Here's another story. This one about Lucas, who lives in Buenos Aires. Lucas loved his morning walks, but felt frustrated with his English-speaking skills. Like many learners, he had a good understanding of grammar and vocabulary, but when it came to speaking, especially with international clients at work, he often felt stuck. His sentences sounded slow, and sometimes he struggled to find the right words quickly. Lucas knew he needed to improve, but wasn't sure how to practice speaking in a way that fit into his busy routine. Then he discovered a simple but powerful habit that completely changed his fluency and confidence. He started talking to himself in English during his daily walks. Lucas's idea was simple. While walking in his neighborhood, he described everything he saw around him. He didn't wait for perfect sentences or worry about mistakes. Instead, he focused on speaking naturally and enjoying the process. For example, he would say, "The sun is shining this morning. There are many people walking their dogs today. The flowers in the park are blooming." He used simple, clear sentences, like he was talking to a friend. At first, it felt a little strange to speak out loud when no one was around, but he quickly realized it was an excellent way to practice without pressure. Talking to himself gave him freedom to experiment with new vocabulary and sentence structures without fear of judgment. Because he was alone, he could pause, think, and try again whenever he needed. Over time, this daily practice helped Lucas build muscle memory in his mouth and develop a smoother flow in his speech. One thing Lucas noticed early on was how much his listening skills improved too. As he described his surroundings, he paid attention to the sounds and rhythm of English. Sometimes he imitated the way native speakers said certain words or phrases. This helped him develop more natural intonation and rhythm, making his English sound less robotic and more like real conversation. Lucas also got more comfortable with his own voice. Many learners feel shy or embarrassed to speak out loud, especially if they are self-conscious about their accent or mistakes. But Lucas embraced the process and learned to enjoy speaking English with confidence. Eventually, Lucas started speaking more in real conversations. Because he had practiced regularly, he felt ready to use English spontaneously with friends, colleagues, and clients. His fluency increased, and so did his self-esteem. If you want to improve your speaking and feel more confident like Lucas, try this simple habit. Talk to yourself in English during your daily activities. Describe what you see, how you feel, or what you plan to do next. You don't need to prepare or write down sentences first. Just speak naturally and focus on communication. Even 5 minutes a day can make a big difference over time. Before we finish, here are some quick tips to remember. Focus on patterns, not memorize sentences. Learn useful sentence structures you can adapt easily. Speak out loud every day. It can be just a few minutes describing your day or thoughts. Don't wait to feel ready. Start speaking now, even if you feel nervous or imperfect. Use mistakes as learning opportunities. Perfection isn't the goal. Communication is. Make speaking fun and meaningful. Talk about topics you enjoy or things happening in your life. Record yourself occasionally. Listen to your voice and notice improvements over time. Practice speaking alone to build confidence. Talking to yourself is a safe and effective way to train. I want to talk about something simple but powerful, clear, easy communication, and feeling comfortable with your own voice when speaking English. When you practice regularly, even with small steps, like Lucas's daily walk talks, you build a strong foundation for your English skills to grow. So, next time you go for a walk, or have a few quiet moments during your day, try talking to yourself in English. Describe what you see, share your thoughts, and have fun with it. Over time, you'll notice your speaking becoming more fluid, natural, and confident. This is how you move from sounding like a robot to speaking English with real life and energy. Now, I want to talk about something that many English learners struggle with: making mistakes. I know that making mistakes can feel uncomfortable, and often fear of mistakes holds people back from speaking freely. But here's the truth. Mistakes are not only normal, they are essential for learning. Nobody becomes fluent without making mistakes along the way. In fact, I believe the sooner you start embracing mistakes, the faster you'll improve and sound more natural in English. When I started learning English myself, I remember how much I feared making mistakes. I wanted everything to be perfect: the grammar, the pronunciation, the vocabulary. If I made a mistake, I would freeze or feel embarrassed. That stopped me from speaking as much as I wanted. But then I realized something important. Fluent speakers don't speak perfectly all the time. Even native speakers make mistakes, especially when they're tired, nervous, or in new situations. What matters most is not perfection, but being able to communicate your ideas clearly and confidently. I see this with so many learners around the world. They get stuck trying to remember every grammar rule or pronounce every word exactly right. This effort to be perfect actually makes their speech sound unnatural and robotic. It's like they are translating in their head while they speak, which slows them down and adds pressure. But if you accept that mistakes will happen and allow yourself to speak anyway, you free yourself to communicate more naturally and enjoy the process of learning. Let me share why mistakes are actually good. When you make a mistake and then notice it or get feedback, your brain is actively learning and adjusting. This is how real progress happens. It's like a muscle getting stronger when used and challenged. The more you practice speaking, the more you expose yourself to new words and sentence patterns, and the more comfortable you become with using them correctly over time. Another important point is that mistakes don't usually block understanding. Most of the time, when you make a small mistake, the person you're speaking to can still understand your message. What really matters is that your ideas come across clearly and your listener can follow what you're saying. I always encourage learners to focus on clarity rather than perfection. If you get your message across, you're succeeding. In fact, some mistakes can even lead to interesting conversations. When someone notices something you said differently, they might ask you about it. That gives you a chance to explain or learn a new way of saying it. This kind of interaction is valuable because it helps you deepen your understanding and remember language better. So mistakes can open doors to real, meaningful communication. I want you to remember, mistakes are not a reflection of your intelligence or ability. They're simply part of the learning process. Everyone goes through it. When you feel frustrated by a mistake, remind yourself it's a step forward, not backward. You're practicing and growing every time you speak, even if it doesn't feel perfect. To help you embrace mistakes, here are some practical tips. Change your mindset about mistakes. Instead of seeing them as failures, see them as opportunities to learn and improve. When you make a mistake, pause and think about how you could say it differently next time. This reflection is powerful. Find safe spaces to practice speaking where mistakes are welcomed and accepted. This could be a language exchange group, a class, or talking with patient friends. When you practice in a comfortable environment, you feel less pressure to be perfect and more freedom to experiment. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback. Sometimes we don't realize our mistakes until someone gently points them out. Ask your conversation partners or teachers to correct you in a helpful way so you can learn and avoid repeating the same mistakes. Celebrate your progress. Keep track of new words or phrases you use correctly, or moments when you felt more confident speaking. Remind yourself that every time you speak, you're building your skills. The road to fluency is a journey, and mistakes are like bumps that help you learn how to navigate. Remember, communication is a skill. Just like playing an instrument or a sport, nobody starts as an expert. It takes time, practice, and yes, making mistakes along the way. The difference between those who succeed and those who give up is often their attitude toward mistakes. If you welcome them as part of the process, you will keep moving forward. So, I invite you today to change how you see mistakes. When you speak English, give yourself permission to make errors. Don't hold back because of fear. Speak out loud. Try new words and phrases. And don't worry if it's not perfect. Your goal is to be understood and to enjoy the connection with others through language. If you ever feel like you messed up, just smile and keep going. Each mistake is a building block that helps you become a more natural and confident English speaker. Mistakes mean you're learning, and learning is success. Keep practicing, stay curious, and trust that with time and effort, you will sound less like a robot and more like yourself, a wonderful English speaker with your own unique voice. Thank you so much for listening to English Without Limit. I'm Julia, cheering you on every step of the way. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and share it with friends who want to improve their English. Remember, your English has no limits.